I'm back. Well, what have we got today from Tony Mackenzie and Evil Owl Studios? Well, I've got, if you can see it down there, an Ampero. Now, this is the original one. Now, the point about the original one is this, that, well, it's been out a couple of years or so. The fact is that it's got its features that are still good. In fact, they're very good. Now, there is a brand new Ampero come out called an Ampero Stomp, which I'll be reviewing in about a week or maybe 10 days, 14 days, something like that. I'm waiting for it to arrive, not so easy to get hold of, and there's delays in transport and all sorts of things going on. Yeah, so what we're going to do with this one is first of all, we're going to get down there and have a real close look at it. Yeah, we'll go inside first because I really want to look at that, because to be honest, I couldn't find much information about the processor and what's going on inside the unit. And it's always nice to have a look at the, the quality and what processor you used and things like that before we move on. Now, if you want to skip that, that's fine, you can skip it. Go and have a look down in the text below, because there's a sort of index of what you can look at. This is the first part, so I'm going to get in closer so we can have a good look at what you've actually bought. Okay, well, as you see, the back of the unit's held together with a number of screws that locate this back plate. I'm going to go whip that off right now. Note that also across the front and across the back there are also some other screws that hold that case together, so you're going to need to have a look careful if you're going to pull yours apart. Well, as you can see, this is a pretty well made board actually. It's made in China, which some boards really aren't made well, and some boards are, well, pretty poor. But this one appears to be very well designed around here. This is a board we'll look at in a moment. Across the bottom, this is where the foot switches reside. You can see them here, and they're on a separate board, so I guess you could buy a board. Well, could you? That's a great question. Maybe Hotone will sell you a board. I know you can contact them in China. But is there anybody in the UK that you can contact and buy one of these boards? Well, maybe the dealers would want to know, but my guess is they probably wouldn't. They're like that sometimes. It might be the same in the USA or not, I don't know. But here in the UK, I wouldn't like to try and buy any of these spares unless they're already off the shelf and available from anybody. From this end, working this way, this is the expression pedal that you know about that's on the top. There's a bracket there, and there's another one held on the base of the unit, which actually you don't need to remove those bottom screws. Moving along, we've got all the little connections and the main outs here, the left and right. You can see on the board itself, it's all pretty much surface mount, so, well, don't hold it against it, because you can buy surface mount replacement parts. We've got the capacitors and the little chips that are sitting there on most of these sort of things. Moving along, these connections don't look too bad, but I'd hate to have to, well, change any, or in particular some of the other little boards like that one there, for example. So overall, pretty good quality. This particular one is an MP100 Ampero motherboard version 5. Importantly, we've got some memory here, and underneath this board, I've already had a quick look, is the main processor. I'm going to whip that out so you can have a good look at what you're actually paying for. It could be a plan. What we have overall is a pretty well made floor pedal. Nothing to be sniffed at all really in there. It's all good. That's important, especially when you're paying. Looking at the processor, this is an Analog Devices Shark chip. Getting on a bit now. It's an ADSP 21489. And yeah, they're in a lot of different systems, these are. They're probably very cheap these days. Very cheap. So don't build your hopes on it being current technology, because factually it isn't. Moving along, this is a supporting chip, which I'm not too familiar with, but I might look it up, I might not. But it's an MIM XRT 1052 DVL6B, an IN04B. Anyway, I won't worry too much about that. We've also got As I've said earlier, the various capacitors that are PCB mounted. There's one or two discrete chips as well. Sockets are reasonable. I think the memory, again, it's very common, it's win bond, W9B25G6KH-6. Very common, surface mount. Got any problems? Well, they might help you, they might not. But that's about it for the insides of the unit. I hope you liked it. Okay, well, let's take a quick look across the back of the unit for all the inputs and that sort of thing. Over at this end, we've got the Expression 2 foot switch connector. It's there. You can see it. It's a 1/4 inch TRS input. It's for connecting external expression pedals or foot switch controllers and things like that. Next one across here is the input mode. Now this selects between the input modes optimized for different instruments. For example, in position A, we've got electric guitar. In position B, we've got an acoustic guitar. And in C, we've got a line or keyboard or synth input on this one here, right there. Moving along to the next one, input, which is 1/4 mono input connection for guitar or other instrument set by that. Yeah, all nice and clear. Next up, we have balanced outputs. These two here, left and right, as you can see, it's all there. The balanced stereo XLR output connections to mixer or audio interface. For mono output, use only the left balanced one, which is very common, and that's what they do in all of them, isn't it? Quite simple, really. Next thing along, this little switch right there. Now that's a ground lift switch, and you turn the ground lift switch on to cut off the ground connection of two XLR connections. Ground lift to avoid the noise caused by the ground lift. Yeah, well, it'll either help you or it won't, and that's how I tend to think of those things. I've seen loads of them that don't tend to do anything really, if you want the truth. Next along, right here, is we've got the aux input. Now these are 8th stereo inputs for connecting external devices, it says here. Phone, MP3, for practice or jamming. Well, it has its place, I can assure you it does. Next one along here, right there, is the phones. They're an 8th stereo output for connecting to headphones, but really annoying them little 8 things are, aren't they? I don't know what you think, but to me they're a little bit, well, they shouldn't really be there, should they? Ha. Moving along to 15, which is these two here. These are an unbalanced output. They're unbalanced 1/4 TS stereo output connections. Off to amps or other equipment. For mono output, again, use just the left one. Well, hopefully from there you can see what's left, and there isn't really that much left. We've got a USB, where is it? There it is. We've got a USB connection, and that's a type B, connects to the computer for Ampero software, or as a USB audio interface, which is interesting if you want to stream the audio into your PC. You know, it's a audio interface, should I say. Moving on from that, something I really like to see is a power switch. Now you wouldn't believe the amount of pieces of equipment like this one, the smaller, effects units that don't have an on and off switch. This one's got it, and good on them for doing it. Next along, pretty obvious, you can tell what it is. It's a MIDI input, and you can control a lot of things in this with MIDI. It's a standard 5-pin MIDI in, and you can connect a MIDI controller, or they have their own, but any MIDI controller will work providing you set it up right, and that's the trick really. Lastly, we've got this one, the power supply connection. Now this is 18 volts DC center negative, so it's not an everyday run-of-the-mill, oh this one will do. It doesn't work on multi-voltages like on the new Ampero pedal I'll be showing in a week or so, so don't go putting the wrong thing in, will you? And lastly, we've got a cable thing that stops it snagging and ripping this off and that sort of thing. All good round the back, all very nicely made. Now then, sitting around the top of this unit, it's not really complex. It might look it at first, especially if you don't know what you're looking at and stuff like that, but you know how it goes. It's all pretty straightforward really. So I'll just explain the knobs before we get any further. Number one, This is like a 4-inch display screen, and we've seen them before on other stuff like the H5 and things like that. Different devices. Generally they're okay, but on some of them I've seen them where the text's a little bit tiny and close together, and you often hit the wrong choice, if you will. Number 2 is this one over here. This is a sort of volume, pretty obvious, just the overall volume of the output connections. Simple. It's really simple. Next one we've got is this one over here, and this says menu stroke value. You can see it there. If you turn or press the knob, it allows you to change menus and adjust various parameters. It's pretty simple, really. It says what it says on the tin, and that's actually what it is inside. Number 4 here, that's an interesting little button, and I haven't seen this on any other one of recent times. This is like, locks everything down so you can't knock it, and if we were to turn that on, like so, yeah, you're locked in, that's it. Nothing works. So, to be honest, I really like that one. Great idea. Next one are these across the bottom here. There's 3 of them. And these are like quick access knobs. These sort of like the sort of line 6 stuff as well. And many others, Roland, there's lots of different people who've got these sort of controllers. Well, what do? Well, they vary dependent on what you're choosing up above. In this case, at the moment, this is set for amp gain, delay mix, and amp master. Well, that's all well and good. They're not hard to use. You just twiddle around with them, and you can see these things moving backwards and forwards in real time, which is something I like. I don't know if you do, but it's all good to me. Foot switches, you can see them here. This one here, this is used to change patches, turn on and off effects, set tap tempos, and so on and so forth. Well, it's not just this one, it's all of them. And if you look down some of them, this one says here, hold for tuner. And if you press that, up comes a guitar tuner. No, it's not a tuner sandwich, it's a guitar tuner, and that's where it is. If you press these 2 together, you get a down on the banks. And if you press these 2 together, you go up on the banks. Well, it's not rocket science, it's pretty easy to understand, and it's very similar to a lot of other devices that are kicking around these days. You click these 2 and you can get into the looper, and then the buttons when you're in the looper do these things. That looks like record or play, that looks like reverse, and that's half speed. Now you can only record about 100 seconds on this, and if you put it into stereo it records 50 seconds, I'm afraid, in the looper. So the looper, it might be perfectly okay for a lot of guys, 100 seconds or 50 seconds in decent stereo, but I don't know, I've always shied away from them personally because I think they're a little bit limited when you've got 100 seconds. When you've got some of the Roland stuff for 3 hours, 100 seconds seems a bit minuscule, don't you think? And lastly down here we've got the Hotone or Hotone. I call it Hotone really. It is like an expression pedal. It's fixed to the unit, but you can change what it does. You can have it as a wah pedal, or you could have it as a volume pedal, or you could have it as any one of a number of different things. And as I showed you earlier, up at the top here there's a hole there so you can put an external expression. So you can have at least 2 of them. And expression pedals in one way or another are always good, in my opinion. Now one of the things I'm not going to do is sit here all day going through every single last parameter, because to tell you the truth, most of this, it's pretty obvious what it is. So if we was to choose that there and press the button, you're in the global settings, and there are loads of them, but they're all very similar these days. To be honest, there's some I/O, USB, and that's global EQ that you've got there, which can be very useful if you're going from venue to venue. Various things for the expression, the MIDI, factory reset if you need. We've got an about there, which you should be able to click like so, which you do. And this is 3.8 Service Pack 1, which is the latest firmware, I might add. There it is. So if yours is anything older than that in December 2021, go and update it, because they fix bugs and all sorts of things with them. Take the expression pedal and foot switch, expression pedal 2. For example, it takes you to down here, mode expression, mode single foot switch, dual foot switch. You got any more? That's it, single or dual, and off you go. And what you can do is move along to the next one. If you want to work on single, you can say, well, what is it? Foot switch, tap, bank, tempo, patch, 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 da 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 da. Loads and loads of it. You can see it even takes you to tuner. Now notice on this thing, you've actually got a drum kit built in it, which I think is quite good really. We choose that. We've got various beats. We can have it going, and I'm not going to have it going as it happens, but we've got various beats that we can go and choose. What can I say? Yeah, let's go back. It's all in there. It's that simple. Now you can see I'm on this PO1 choice 1. So it's really bank 1, one of 3 different choices. I'll move up to bank 2. But I don't want to do that. I'll stay here. And if I wanted to edit that, I can sort of hit this button, whip up here, and hit edit. And when I do that, you get all the different effects that are turned on or turned off, or this or that or the other. They're all what they are, of course. Various numbers of effects. You can have up to, I think it's 9 on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But that does include some things like an amp and a cab. You've got to remember, so it's not quite 9, is it? Well, people would argue it is. But that's the way life is. If I was to choose that, that's turned it on, that's turned it off. It's all pretty simple. But I can edit that. I can say edit. I can choose different ones. I'm not going to. But it's very flexible. Importantly, it does support various cabs, and you know, these IRs that everybody's all jumping up and down about, when all the fact is they're just a filter. It amazes me. But there you go, you can change microphones, you can change the volume, the positioning, the this, the that, the other. I'm not spending all day on it, because most people these days are really getting into that. They understand that it's actually pretty easy to use. There's not much more I can say about it, it's just simple. Now another thing you can do with this, I'm not going to demo it, but I'll just talk about it, is you can actually customize the unit for what you want. You might want these switches to do different things than how they come from the factory. That's a common thing that people want to do. You might want to control different things here than what are there. There's lots of different things you can change in it. It's quite extensive. For example, take this here, this BPM. You've got a tap tempo on here. Hold 4 tap, it says there. And if you're using the tap tempo, when the foot switch LED will turn blue, flash with tempo set. Set the tempo by tapping the foot switch. Well, that's good, and all the rest of it. But you can also set lots of other stuff. You can opt to use tap divide rather than time-based tempo. The default tap divide is set to quarter notes, which is pretty common really. But the tap divide values in relation to the musical beats are extensive. There's whole note, half note, dotted half note triplet, quarter note, no divide, dotted quarter note triplet, eighth note, dotted eighth note, and on they go. So yeah, very extensive for such a small, low-cost unit. Somebody's put a lot of effort into the simple operation, because it is pretty simple, the operation of this unit. And no matter what I say, I can't get away from the fact of how easy it is to really use. It's not like some of the other ones that I've seen. But that's enough of the hardware, and I'm going to load up the control interface, the software, so you can have a look at that, because that makes things much easier than faffing around with little buttons. And it was one of the problems that I saw on the MX5. The MX5 had no software at all. At the time I reviewed it, it may change. But I found, because it had got a 4-inch screen and some of the text was close together, you were down here and the wrong thing was popping up. And I think that's a big mistake by some designer somewhere, because you know, you can cut corners and not have any software, probably save a bit of money. But ultimately it affected the controllability, in my opinion, of that unit. And that's not the case with this Ampero. Sure, it's an older device, but is it really any inferior? Well, to be honest, I don't think it is inferior. There are a lot of things going for this that I thought were really a little bit better than the MX5, and that's a nearly new pedal. The Ampero Stomp is coming along, and in a week or so, keep your eyes on my channel. And one of the things you really need to do is to make sure that you turn on the notifications for all, not just notifications, else you don't get notified. And you can believe it or not, out of all the various guys that have subscribed to my channel, I'm on about 5% of those people that have got everything turned on so they get notified, which is just absolutely, well, it's unbelievably bad. But that's a very common thing on YouTube, and I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. So bear in mind that subscribing matters, but if you subscribe and then you don't turn on all notifications, you will never get the notifications of when I repost. And I don't always post every week or every this or every that, so you can't depend on going and just finding the next device, you know. And I do review some pretty good devices from time to time, so it's worthwhile. You know, the evil owl has told me to tell you that, so, and he's coming round if you don't. And you can make no mistake whatsoever that if you don't do as he's told, he'll be round. Yeah, pentagram included. Okay, well, let's take a quick look at the editor. This is Ampero Editor 1.3. And it's a very nice layout, if you want the truth. You can see it here. This is a touchscreen PC, by the way, and I've just flipped it over to act like a tablet. You can see there, if I hit P011, well, that's what it's actually on. And you can see the various things that are turned on or turned off. We can see very easily here. That's on, the cab's on, and there's a delay on and a reverb on. And I guess you could move along if there were any more, which in this case there aren't. We've got patch volumes here, we've got sustain and output for the compressor, and there are a number of compressors. Depends what you want, I suppose. These factory patches down the side are just literally, I'm not going to save anything. I've just moved to another patch, and there's absolutely loads of them. We can go all the way down here. You can see how many there are. 33-3. Okay, so we can move around and choose different ones. And of course, as I'm doing this, what you find is that the fact is that the unit's doing the same. We can look at the drum machine. We can start it, stop it, and so on and so forth. I don't think you'll actually hear it because I don't have anything turned on for that. But we can also have a bunch of user patches or factory patches. They look the same at the moment because they haven't been changed, because it's all factory fresh. We can look at a cab. This takes you through where the microphone sits, and you've got a pile of microphones that you could choose. Now on the new Stomp, the microphones have changed a little bit. You've got a number of different cabs down here. A triple 4x12, yeah, nothing like one of them. But there they are, and you can add your own. Yeah, there they are at the bottom. There used to be 10, but I think there's about 30 now, or 25, something like that. User IRs. And you can go and even get some of those for free from Celestion, and over the net there's millions of them, and that's one of the problems. They just have that many choices. It gets to be a little bit painful, if you want the truth. There's just far too many of them. I don't know what anybody would do with, 5,000 IRs. I really don't know. I've never been able to get to grips with that, or even justify how anybody could have 4,000 or 5,000 IRs and claim that they're using them. They're not. Well, look at the amp. I've got a pile of amps as well. Here they are. I'm not going to list everything out. It's just an overview really on this one because it's an older device. But don't write the device off as being junk, because it certainly is not. And you can get these at a bargain price compared to the new Ampero Stomp that I think is about 430 quid. I think I paid 200 and something for this one. That's a lot of difference, and bear in mind that I've got the expression pedal and you haven't. So we could carry on running through all this stuff. We can back up things up, we can restore patches. In fact, there's a pile of patches, by the way. You'll see in here there are a number of patches that I've downloaded from the factory, which they're nice. You can go and load them up and have a bit of fun. Or you can just make your own, of course. It's like everything else. So there's a Peter Oliveira, there's a Denis Moisienko, I hope I got that right, Dimitri, Volume 2, there's a Dimitri Volume 1. Yeah, and on it goes. There's probably loads more of them. I'm just too idle to go looking, if you follow me. That's a quick overview. I'm not going through all the junk with it. I wanted to get across how well it's made and the fact that this software does exist. And yes, you can use the touchscreen on the hardware. However, this one's not too bad, but the MX5 did give me a bit of a bother at the time. So there you have it. Well, okay, that's all interesting stuff. It's been around about 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, and it's got a sharp processor in it, which they all harp on about, but it's nothing to shout about these days. Yeah, the MX5, by the way, didn't have a sharp processor in it. It had basically something a bit like a pie chip. That's another story. Go and watch my review for that. But the thing is, if you look at this device, for what you pay, you can get them second hand, maybe a couple £100 or maybe $300 or something like that, or maybe even cheaper if you fish around a bit. You're going to find that, well, it's probably worth the money. The Stomp I just bought a week or so ago cost me, I think, £430. Well, I do know how much it is in dollars, but I don't know what the sort of retail price is of the Stomp in America, for example. So you can all bung it down below. I love that. So you can get a comparison. The Stomp has a few extra settings. It's got a few more of this and a few less that. And basically, it ain't got that pedal, so you've got to get some money out for that. But is it improved? Well, the truth is you're going to find out in about a week or 2 weeks. It'll be more in depth than this one. This one's just a bit more like an overview really than anything. It's been done to death on the internet, but they're like that, aren't they? I'm only reviewing it really to show you inside, to show you the ease of use and that it is a bargain no matter what anybody might tell you. So what about warranty on this thing? If you went and bought a new one, I think you can still buy them. In fact, I know you can. Yeah, I think actually on their website, they're $399, but their website's probably China or somewhere. I don't know. I didn't pursue any of that because I bought mine second hand. But warranty on these things is a 1 year warranty, and I think it applies to all of these, so even on the Stomp it's probably the same. Scarily, it only covers manufacturing defects, and manufacturing defects are fine, but they're not. And the reason they're not is that, well, do you know how many of these would fail from manufacturing defects? Well, if it's a manufacturing defect, well, you could argue that, well, it'd probably be on all of them, but it might not be. You might just have a little batch of switches or something, I don't know. But I doubt they get many warranty claims on manufacturing defects. It's one of those sort of, well, I think it's one of them sort of get-outs that removes an element of warranty. So how would I rate this thing overall? I haven't played it. I'm not going to play it in this particular video. I'll probably do a comparison between this and the Stomp one when I get it in a week or two. So it's a little bit pointless playing it here. But when I do, you'll be able to hear the two and see if they sound the same, which they probably do. I think I'll rate it at about an 8, which is pretty good. It offers a lot for a little, especially if you buy it second hand. So I can recommend you go and get one second hand. That's the answer. Don't go and spend $400 thereabouts, at least, on a new one, when you can get a second hand one. There's nothing wrong with them. Look at this one. It looks just brand new. I had it from a guy on eBay. And funnily enough, hold on. He had one of these Ampero switches thrown in for free, and I thought that was a good deal, so I bought it. And he threw in the switch, which, how can you argue? That allows the whooper to work better, by the way, because the whooper's a bit iffy without... Well, actually, it lets a lot of things work better, because you've got the extra switches for the extra things that you're going to program, aren't you? Okay, so an 8 out of 10. Would I buy it again? Yeah, I would buy it again. You'll see the audio review with the stomp one, so don't complain about that. That's just the way life is. It doesn't impress me too much to want to sit down and go through every last feature on this unit because it's an older unit, but don't think that in some way that it's inferior to the current stuff out there, because it isn't. I hope you've subscribed, and if you have subscribed or you haven't subscribed, well, if you haven't, go and do it, and if you have, go down to that blimmin' thing that gives you the notification of when I post something, because if you don't do that, trust me, I couldn't believe that 4 or 5% of people only out of 30,000 subscribers actually do that. Scary. Most of my reviews are a little bit better than this one, but I explained the reasons why I'm not getting into great depths. Everybody and the dog's done it, and I just wanted to show you before I get to the other one. So that's it for now. There's loads of stuff down in the text. I'll probably link to a few other devices that are sort of similar, like Roland, like Line 6, like MX5s, and so on and so forth. So you should have a look down there, if nothing else. And that's it for now. I'm not going to go and spend any more time on this, so you better get out of here. I'll see you next time from Tony Mackenzie and Evil Owl Studios.